Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're taking a look at a Toro Z Master commercial mower. Customer brought it in and one side of the arm will not work. So we can spin in circles if we want to, but we can't actually go anywhere. I did a little bit of searching around after we got the pump ordered and found that there is not a video out there of doing this replacement. So we're gonna show you how to get your hydro pump replaced if you need to do that and everything associated with it on one of these Exmark or Toro commercial mowers like this. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button as we go along if you enjoy the content. Hopefully you know how to flip your seat up, otherwise it's going to be a pretty long road for you. You've got the lever, pull it towards the back, and it unhooks here. And flip that seat right forward. Your seat probably won't fall apart like that one did, or darn near. But then we have full access to the whole area where the hydro pumps sit. It is that far side that needs replaced. This one was actually done last year. And just flip this forward to get better access to the engine pulley, the idler pulley, and the hydro pump pulleys down in the access panel. One easy way to tell if you're having an issue with your hydro and it's the actual hydro or not, in this case it's real easy. It's leaking oil from the front seal and the bearing is actually completely locked up in it. But if you have tried a purge procedure and your pump is heating up very quickly, that's a good sign that it's going to need rebuilt or replaced. We don't have the luxury of time to pull one of these and rebuild it right now, but that is something that's possible with these pumps fairly easily, depending on what exactly is going on. It looks like the housing on that other one is actually bad, so this one wouldn't be a good candidate for that. Many of them, though, can be rebuilt, again, fairly easily. But if you do the purge procedure and it heats up real quick, that's a good sign that your hydro is very likely on its way out or has some major issues. To start this replacement, I'll get this flap out of the way so we can see a little bit better. And then we'll start to get this pump taken off along with all the hoses and everything to get it freed up and get it replaced. We got that top cover off. It was just 2 bolts holding it on each corner. Yours is going to have 2 additionals. These are ripped out. We'll clean this up, get some of this oil and this grass out of our way. Never hurts to be clean as you're doing it. I'm not going to deep clean it yet. I will power wash it after everything's finished up. But the more you leave down here, the more chance all this has of getting up on your belt and causing issues. You see many of them, when people don't clean it, it'll actually just rub against the bottom of the belt over here by the spring, where it builds up, and next thing you know, the belt is shot. It's not real hard if you do it every now and again, even just to use a blower down in here. Straight down in, it'll push all that grass up and out. That is, as long as it's not oil soaked. It's looking pretty clean. What I like to do to get the belt off is just use a big pry bar. And I go on this side and get right in between it and the spring, so we can just pull it right back and get tension off. Very easy to pull the belt off if you do it that way. And I'm going to let this spring and this idler pulley just fall back down that way. Got to be careful. I have popped this spring off one time, but I've done this quite a bit and I've only popped it off of there once. So just be careful not to do that. And I leave all of these exactly how they should be. There is a belt routing diagram over here. I just find it best to leave everything where it is, and then you don't even have to worry about the belt routing diagram. You know exactly how it goes back on. But things do get messed up sometimes, so you can refer to that diagram if it gets completely off. We got to spin our pulley around so you can see the square set screws. I'm just going to use a 3/8 12-point socket to get onto that and to loosen it up. I think I had some square sockets at one point, but it seems like every time I go to look for them, I can't find them. A 3/8 12-point socket will work great for this, though. You don't have to take them all the way out, but I like to loosen them pretty good. You want to pay attention to how much of the shaft is sticking out on the back end, because that'll be where you're lining everything back up at. There's not a bunch here. I'd say maybe a 1/4 inch on the other side, or a little bit more. I think this might have actually already moved. No, it didn't. This one's got a little bit more, I think, than most of them do. You can lube that shaft up before you start to take it off. Move it back and forth. I'm just going to grab a couple pry bars, see which one works best in there. I believe this should work just about perfect. Try to get in between. No, it's not quite skinny enough. I like to go all the way to the back side, so we're not pushing on the outside of that pulley. Got a tire iron here. Get right down in. For some reason it doesn't seem like I can get quite as far as I want to. Pulley is off. There's a bolt holding the arm on. You can get a long extension from the back side or use 2 wrenches. You may have to move that steering arm a little bit to get exactly how you want to. So I've got to move the steering arm forward just a little bit to get that bolt to come out backwards, because it's got to be back to the back, right in the way of the camera, of course. The bolt will come right back out. You've got to move the steering arm back and forth as you do it, though, so you get in the right position to get it all the way. If you notice, there is a washer on the back side there. Pretty sure it's usually much easier than that, but the bolt is kind of stuck in my little ball joint there. It doesn't want to move. So I'm just going to leave it where it is until we get everything else disconnected. We've got one on the top and one on the bottom that holds the pump in. Get those off. Now the pump's just free, hanging here. I'm gonna remove our hoses. Got one up top, one on the side, and two down below. I'm gonna hold it in place with this. If you do it first, you don't really have to hold it in place. You're gonna get oil draining out. That's why I've got a bucket down below. Again, normally this bolt comes out of there a little bit easier. And we're a little freer right now. There's a hose clamp on the one to the side here. Just use a pair of needle nose. Let me get a longer pair. Needle nose so we can slide that clamp down. And that hose, you can just kind of grab it and twist, and then pull it down also. Maybe I'll show that down below as I do the others. You can pry or pull it straight off. There it is. Now we've got our two hoses on the bottom that need to come. I always like to mark them just with the paint marker. I always mark my right one with paint. Paint's not going to want to stick real well, but just something that lets you know exactly where they go back to. You don't want to mix them up, and they are kind of the same. And this is a 7/8. This can also be done before you remove the mounting bolts. But again, I don't think it really matters. I like to do it afterwards. You want to clean this up as much as you can too. You don't want any of that dirt to get down in there. Now we are completely free, again, except for this one bolt. Oop, it looks like it just moved. It was kind of stuck in there. May have to go forward with my arm a little bit. Gotta get that bolt the rest of the way out. Should be perfect. Should be right where it needs to be to come out of there. Slowly but surely. There it goes finally. We've got the old one and the new one. I'm going to show you as I try to turn this. You can hear the bearings and it's extremely hard to turn. It's actually stuck right there. I can't turn it anymore. But we do have a key in that shaft. It's got to come out. Put that in the other one. If you have a bad set screw spot, you may have to file some of that down. I might just take a grinder to it, just so your new one goes on nice and smooth. Otherwise, it's not going to go on smooth. Put that in there. Still doesn't seem quite like maybe it's up just a hair. The cleaner you have that, the better it's going to be. Make sure that that still doesn't want to go quite all the way to the back. Clean that up just a hair more. Almost seems like it was a little bit off from being pinched there all that time. See how easy it goes on now. If you don't mess with this now and make sure it's going to go on there smooth, it's not going to go on there smooth later. Went on perfectly, comes back off perfectly. We'll lube that up before we install it, but I'm going to turn this one just so we're at the same as the other one is. And we're going to take this attachment and move it over to this side. Just to unscrew it here. Loosen that nut. You want to pay attention what orientation it is. See how it's at a big angle? If you don't put it back at that angle when you put it on the other one, it's not going to work right. If you look at the plug that comes with it, it does have an O-ring on it. Some people say that O-ring does fit to replace this. I don't like the sizing of it. You can see that these are very far tapered. The ones that are on there currently, you don't want to reuse that. Otherwise, you can get an air leak there, and it can cause issues, including your hydro going completely back out again if you run it for too long like that. I'm just going to cut these off. Ugh. That's extremely hard. See how it's flat on the backside? That's supposed to be an O-ring. It's not supposed to be tapered like that. It's supposed to be about this size. I actually used the Boss O-ring kit. It's got 904 through 914 and then a 916. I kind of put a different grid so I can actually know where they are. I don't know why they didn't do that when they originally made this kit, but I like it a lot better than the other one. If you look, it seems like it's a little bit thicker and about the size it should be. So I never use those. Make sure there's no debris or anything around there. You just pop that new O-ring over the top. We use the medium weight silicone grease from Reliability Proven. It's a Chemplex 710 essentially, or an equivalent. Go the same amount of turns back, and then we'll tighten it down at that same angle. If that is not in good shape, I would get a replacement. hold it in place with another wrench while you're tightening it. You want it nice and tight so it doesn't leak there. You don't want it to pull air either. Perfect. Now I just rotate, and I do one side at a time. Rotate around. Do the same thing to the next one. And I believe, yep, so that one's actually got to come off before I can get the other one. Use that same 3/8 12-point socket. Just loosen it a little. Should pry right up and off. Perfect. Right over onto the other one. We'll tighten it down. Good. Now we'll remove this one. Oh yeah, that's nice. We can see a bunch of pieces of metal down in there as I'm looking. Looks like pieces of the bearing. That's what that is. Make sure there's none of that left. See, there's still some in here. Got to make sure all that gets out. Yeah, a bunch of it down in there. There we go. Bunch more. Yeah. I have to wash that out real quick, make sure that it's completely clear. All right, I've got that nice and clean, no more metal in it. It's quite a bit down in there. That's why it's always good to check. That other outlet was perfect. There's nothing in it. Same thing with this one. And normally you can just kind of pick at the edge and get them off. These are like really hard for some reason. Not pliable at all anymore. That's not going to seal if we were to leave that on there. So we're going to use a 906 like we used last time. I'll put the part numbers and stuff for this down below, along with a link for the kit. I use this all the time. I mean, I think this is a newer one. We ran out of a bunch of the most common sizes, but it comes in handy when doing any hydraulic fittings. Good. Well, shoot, I just put that on before the other one. Seems like I do that every time. Oh well, not a big deal. Going just about like that. And grab my wrong one. It's 11/16 here. Should be just about perfect. And then we'll put this back on again. Go to the next. Yes, I did cover that up. I wanted to make sure that none of you file a warranty claim on my customer's new hydro gear. The internet is a very strange place. Can't stress that enough. Not sure what size that is. 3/4 maybe. 7/8. It is a 7/8. I'll grab my hammer. Wow, it's really on there. There we go. About time. Still pretty tight. Get it all cleaned up. The more that you get out of these threads, the better everything's going to be. When we come to the larger ones, it's not quite as hard as those others were, where I have to actually cut it off. You can tell it's oblong, it's at an angle. And again, you could use this one, but to me it just doesn't seem nearly thick enough. I guess maybe it is, but when you look at the replacement, which it's supposed to be exactly the same size as, this one just seems bigger and it seems more stout in this kit. So get that on there. Is it really on there? Again, everything there is clear, nice and clean. One more time. This one seems a little harder than the other one. Yeah. Just real bad shape some of these O-rings are. Use another one of these 908s. Good to go. And this O-ring, if you can not feel, if you rub your fingernail across the edge, if you can't feel that O-ring coming up past that, then you know that one needs replaced also. I've actually never had to replace one of these. They're always good, it seems like. But just in case, do those tests and make sure that it's good. That way you don't have a leak there also. It is tapered metal to metal that fits also. That's just kind of a seal to help. All right, it's looking like we got everything all ready to rock and roll. Since the elbow here goes from a larger size to a smaller size, normally most of that metal is contained and won't get back through the system. But that line does connect directly to the reservoir, the expansion tank underneath, and then tees into the other pump. So there is a potential for metal to get all the way to the other side also. Again, normally that doesn't happen, but the filter needs replaced. All of the lines need blown out everywhere, along with to the wheel motor. And normally you're going to have to replace the wheel motor on the corresponding side that that pump has went bad on. We are going to go ahead and do all that, blow it all out. It's an extensive process and takes a long time. I'm not going to go over that in the video. This is just about the replacement more or less. But this is a little bit more in-depth repair than what we originally thought because of all that metal that was let into the system. So we took all those lines apart there. We blew all the rest of the lines out. Everything has been cleaned up and is back in good working order to be put back together. First, get our pump up through. And you can do this a few different ways. I mean, you can bolt it down right now if you want to. I'm going to I cut a little bit off of this bolt, and I'm going to use it as opposed to that other one. Just give me a hair more room. That way I don't have to fight with it. It didn't need to be quite that long with that other bolt. Put our washer on that side. And this should line right up. As long as you got enough sticking through to get onto that nylon portion of the nut, you should be in good shape. Got it started. I'll tighten all that up here in a bit. I'm going to mount at least one bolt in the top to hold the pump in place. At least get it most of the way in there. I've got that one started. We can hook up our top connection while we're right here. Can't remember if that was, I thought it was an 11/16. Nice and snug on there, good. We'll put my hose back on. I did snip it just a little bit shorter, maybe about 3/8 of an inch, just so it sits on there good. Get my other bolts in the pump. Just at least started so it holds it in place. Now I can get this line up the rest of the way. There it goes. Get my hose clamp on. A little easier said than done. There we go. Make sure this is all stayed clean. I did put a towel over that after I got it cleaned off and finished yesterday. The one with my mark is the one that goes on the right. Next, we're going to tighten up our bolts for the pump mount. Hard to get a good view and miss the camera at the same time. All right. Nice and tight. Now we'll put the pulley back on. When we're putting this pulley on, you really want to make sure that all these grooves are nice and clean. I sprayed everything out both on this one and on the other ones. Any debris that's in there is going to cause that belt to wear. We've got our key in. Let's put some anti-seize on there. Good. And if we're looking, you want to make sure that that pulley is lined up with all the other ones. I'm probably just a hair back further than I want to be. It should be even all the way across, from there to here to that other pump on the other side. If it's not, your belt will wear out real quick. Got a machinist straight edge here. Should tell you pretty quickly exactly how even you are. It's level there. Yeah, it's about as straight as it gets. I'm going to tighten it down. Try not to move it while I do it, of course. Now you can, on these, you leave these pump pulleys on when you take the pump off. But it seems to me like every time I've done it that way, it's extremely difficult to get it out. I don't prefer it. This is the way that I've always found much easier than trying to fight to get that pulley through a hole that's exactly the same size as the frame. That's back on. All we need to do is get the pump on. We've got to tighten up our arm over here, and then we'll get some fluid in it and finish up. Let's get this tightened up. Normally I would replace this belt. Customer says it's basically brand new, wants me to reuse it, no problem. You always check the idler pulley, see if there's any kind of noise from the bearing when you're spinning it. If there is, you'll want to replace that while you're here also. And then also in this idler arm, that there's no play. If you can take this arm and move it back and forth, the bushings where that attaches are likely going to need replaced down below. My trick for the belt is just looping it. And we go under everything to the far side pulley and around that pulley for the far side pump. Once you're around that pulley, get it all lined, and it'll go straight across the bottom and around the pump over here. So we're like such. I just keep my loop here still, and then I will bring it over And then once it's like this, I usually grab the other side right at the pump. So I'll just grab it at the pump. And now our belt, that's how it's supposed to be. So just a quick little trick to do it. We'll do the same procedure for getting it on that I did for getting it off. Yep, usually about how it goes sometimes. So again, make sure that that's on everywhere. And we're going to pull this through around over to here. So what I'm going to do to make it a little bit easier now that we've got our routing right, is I'm going to take it off this far side pulley, because that usually seems to be the easiest one to get it around once it's under tension. You don't want to get your finger in there when it's tensioned, that's for sure. A little closer look. Hopefully we can see that on camera real well. Another view from this side. And everything I've seen, it doesn't look like anybody covers this real well as far as filming. It's almost impossible to get a camera down in here, is probably why. But that is how it goes. Now we want to remove the reservoir cap. We did replace the oil filter also. You don't have to do that every time you replace a pump, but anytime that there's that much metal shavings in it, you want to do that. Now the filter's right here. I'm not going to go through that process. I've already done it. All you have to do is unscrew it though and screw a new one on. It's not difficult whatsoever, but it's right in front of the hydro pump is where it's located. Get a funnel. Thought I could freehand that one, but we're using Hydro Gear Commercial transaxle oil. That's all I use in these pumps. I am going to crack the hydro on the side. The other one should already be released, and that's just a nut with a hole in it up top. That's your release. I'll give you a little bit better view of that. Exactly what it took to be up to the hot mark. I like to go a little bit above the cold because it's going to fill in some air and it's going to drop as you run it. So there's your, it says hot on one side and cold on the other. And this is your release nut. Again, there's one on each side. It's got a hole straight through it. You can either use a 5/8 to loosen it or put a rod through that hole to loosen it. That's the way they look on pretty much every hydro out there that they make. We will now put the cap back on, and we're going to purge this hydro. Next, you need to jack up the mower and get some jack stands underneath it. We've got the hydros released. We've got it up on jack stands in the back where the tires cannot catch on to anything if they're spinning. You can release the parking brake and check that with those hydros released. They should freewheel. And again, you don't want them hitting on anything. For this, after we fire it up and go to full throttle, we'll release the parking brake to off. And then we're going to take our arms and go forward slowly and backward slowly. We're going to do that 6 times in each direction. And again, at full throttle. We're going to engage the hydros again now, and then we're going to repeat the process exactly as we just did. This time with the door open, so I don't kill myself in here. Check this fluid level now. It has dropped quite a bit. It's below the cold, so we'll top that off to get it back up to, we'll put it just over cold for now. It'll probably drop a little bit more. We'll want these hydros engaged now. Just going to tighten that up. I'm not sure why this one was so loose. I wonder if he disengaged it. They don't need to be extremely loose. We've got the door open and the fan on to let it clear out for a minute. Same process though, full throttle, parking brake off, forward and reverse 6 times each direction. Now, if your wheels are hitting on anything or hitting on the ground, you've got to be careful because this thing can take off on you. Make sure you're on a steady surface, a flat surface, because otherwise it can roll. You don't want that to happen. Now we repeat exactly the same process. We're going to crack them open again, check the oil, and then more purging. I'm going to check this oil one more time, and then I like to complete the process 3 full cycles each direction. So I'm going to do it with them back closed. I'm going to do it with them open again and then closed one last time. The reason for that is with doing 2 full sets, sometimes you still get that whining and that slow to respondness out of them, and you'll need to do it that other time. I don't like jacking it back up again and going through the whole process. So I like to do it 3 full times, and that always gets it taken care of. I think I've only had one over the years that hasn't worked once I started going to 3 full sets of the purge procedure. Interesting there. Now that we have the purge process completely finished, we will double check the oil again, and then we'll let it down and test drive it around, see how it does. Hopefully this has helped you out if you needed to replace the Toro or Exmark hydro pump on your commercial mower. When you're doing this procedure, you always want to make sure that you keep that oil level full and check for leaks. If it's leaking, you'll get air right back into that system. If it's chattering or whining or making a bunch of noise, or it's not smooth when you're out there testing it, you'll want to repeat that purge procedure again after running it hard for a few minutes. You want that to be smooth, very reactive, and it shouldn't be whining, and it shouldn't be grinding or doing anything other than sounding like a nice smooth hydro should. You'll get a little bit of noise out of it, but anything that's loud is not how it's supposed to be. Repeat that again if you need to, but normally if you do it 3 times to begin with, you won't have to do it anymore. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button if you enjoyed the content. Thank you for watching and have a great rest of your day.